My guest today is an online country clothing store. They're doing £7.5 million in turnover online already. They're spending a good wedge on their Google ads. They're spending £450,000 a year on Google advertising. And my guest today has big aspirations. He wants to not just grow this business, he wants to own the entire sector. This is going to be a fascinating conversation. Let's get into it. Welcome to Grow with Evergreen, the podcast designed to help you grow your business by providing practical insights into all things paid media, creative, and digital strategy. Every episode, we help home, garden, and lifestyle brands with their growth challenges by delving into their business, dissecting what they're doing, and defining a digital growth strategy they can take and deploy into their business. Let's get into it. Right, so welcome back, beautiful people. I hope you're all doing well. I am so excited for today's conversation. My guest is Matthew. Matthew is the managing director at Holland Country Clothing. Really nice, really good brand, beautiful website, great product. They're doing $7.5 million in online revenue already. So clearly they're established. Clearly what they're doing is working. As I said, they're getting on for $500,000 on Google Ads. They're doing a teensy bit of Bing. No paid social ads, which is interesting. And Matt's come on the pod today because he's got some key marketing challenges that he wants to discuss. He himself, as well as being the managing director, is an expert in SEO, PPC. So he knows what he's talking. So we're going to be able to have a real geek off on this episode. He knows what he's talking about, which is great. And he sort of heads up. He does have some agencies that are supporting him with both his SEO and his PPC, but he's sort of overseeing it as well himself. And he's very happy and likes being in on the tools. So he knows what he's doing. And but he likes to sort of, trade some ideas, get perspectives from different people. And that's why he was keen to jump on the pod, and he and I can just have a chat and you get to listen and watch in. So lucky you. Now, the key challenges that I just want to run through. The first one is, as many of you will be able to relate to this, is frankly spending more, but doing so at a profitable ROAS, maintaining that ROAS, improving the performance, and avoiding those ever or inevitable diminishing returns. He wants to completely monopolize and own the country clothing space. He's already done one or two acquisitions, which I'm sure he'll tell us about, and he's got big plans that he just wants to go and just own this sector. He thinks he's seeing a gap in the market, and he has very big aspirations, not just for this brand, but for that wider context, which I think is going to be interesting. And he's got all sorts of other ideas of what he wants to get into. As well as that, when we've been talking in the run-up to the pod, he's also sent over some other questions, which are on sort of wider topics of SEO and of PPC. And he wants to just sort of get my perspective and trade some ideas, which we don't always do on the pod, which is going to be fascinating. So I'm really looking forward to it. So we're going to sort of do it in two parts. But firstly, we're going to look at his business in isolation and look at his marketing challenges. And then we're going to segue into some of the more sort of wider perspectives and what's happening in the sector as a whole. So lots to cover. I don't want to wait anymore. I want to get Matt straight on, and we can go from there. Matt, are you there, my friend?
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you, Aaron.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Yes, very well, mate. How's things? You well?
Yeah, good. Yeah, busy day.
Good. Thank you so much for jumping on.
Yeah, no, it's good to be invited. Thank you.
Pleasure. Just for our viewers, listeners, do you want to just give a quick 30 seconds? Who are you? What's the business? Over to you.
Yeah, so we're a family-run online retailer. The business has been set up originally in 1978. Obviously, the internet and e-commerce wasn't a thing then. We used to be country show traders, market traders. We went online in 2008, originally on like a Dreamweaver and PayPal.
That takes me back. Dreamweaver.
Yeah, Dreamweaver, yeah. PayPal checkout system. And then we went on to Shopify, me and Mark, my uncle, who was the original business owner when I joined. We went on to Shopify in 2017. And we've never looked back since. Shopify's been absolutely fantastic. And yeah.
One of the fairly early adopters, that early for Shopify.
Yeah, it was quite a big decision for us, actually, because PayPal discontinued their button system. And we were faced with, do we go with Magento, who were very, very expensive at the time, very cumbersome, or do we go for this kind of Shopify unknown DIY kind of system? And it just, we quite liked the underdog story around Shopify at the time. I felt like it was they were like the anti-Amazon. So
Yeah,
I
yep,
thought
yep.
that was really cool. They've obviously drifted a little bit away from that now these days. I think they're becoming a bit of a problem in their own right, but that's a separate topic.
It is, it is. But no, look, you've, as you said, will have definitely benefited over the last few years for being on that platform. So that's amazing. So, and as we said, the business, you're doing some good turnover, you're making some good money, and you're spending a good few quid to drive that growth through your Google ads. A question I've got, which sort of stems from the preacher, you're not doing any paid social. Why?
Yeah, it feels crazy, and I think I'm glad it's one of the first things that you've raised because so going back quite a reasonable time, I did some A/B testing, and it was when we were kind of like chasing. I think it was when Facebook advertising first came out. Actually,
Right,
I
right,
did some internal advertising on Facebook, and we were just getting nowhere near the return that we would see on Google as a channel, and it felt at the time like we were also kind of not seeing the revenue, the money that was being spent on paid social with Facebook wasn't translating into like revenue on the website. It was more about kind of interaction and trying to grow a community on social media. So for me, I don't think we did a fantastic job at it, and I think it's an
right.
area of opportunity for us in the future. And interestingly, as we head into autumn winter 24, I had a catch up with our paid advertising guys last week, and basically in August we're gonna start testing with the view that we want to spend a percentage of our total ad spend on the social channels
Yeah,
by
yeah.
the end of the year. So yeah.
Also, I mean, surely for retargeting, if nothing else, that's a no-brainer. Surely.
Yeah, you're right. I suppose the main thing that's been going on in our business in the last couple of years, like a lot of online retailers, Google advertising's got more expensive because it's
Yeah.
become more competitive.
Yep.
But then also because the price that we've been paying for goods, we're a retailer, not a direct consumer brand. So our gross profit margin has been impacted by things like the container crisis and
Yeah. Yeah.
coronavirus and all the rest of it. And as a result, I think we really focused in on efficiency. And you mentioned diminishing returns, either in your
Yes. Yeah.
opening or,
Yeah.
or, or
Yeah.
before we jumped on the podcast. And I
Yeah.
think that is something huge that a lot of retailers don't pay enough attention to.
Absolutely.
So that's what we've honed in on in the last 12 months is efficiency
Yeah.
of Google
But
as a
sure. But
channel.
just on that, for me, paid social, using Meta as an example from a
Yeah,
retargeting perspective, those that have been on the website haven't purchased, but ultimately you want us to keep the brand top of mind. You want to drive the footfall back to the website. You want to engage, incentivize, maybe discount, have strong CTAs, so calls to action, but getting those people, remaining top of mind, using that platform. You could do that really for pennies to keep a brand top of mind on that platform. Even if you don't use it for prospecting, simply plugging in your customer lists, plugging in your website visitors to have another string to your bow, surely that's a no-brainer.
it is, and it's ridiculous that we're not doing it. And like when I think about our email marketing list, we've got 100,000 people on there who are active people who've opened emails in the last 6 weeks. We keep that very very lean, and we could plug that into
Yeah, I
Meta
mean, this
immediately.
is
It's like
there's your win. I mean, we can wrap
yeah,
the pod up
yeah.
here. I mean, that
Let's
just
leave
go
it
and do
there.
that. You're going to be like printing money, right? That's such an easy win.
Yeah, so straight away, like that's the obvious one, without a doubt,
Yeah, for
100%.
sure.
We're on the
For
same
sure. So
page.
I think that's the first thing. I mean, absolutely. I think you already said you were going to plan to do more Bing because you're absolutely right. With Google, it is getting more competitive. We are seeing, every industry is seeing more people, flood the market because frankly, the barrier to entry with your Shopify's and everything, it's so easy. Anyone can create a drop shipping retailing business and, it's very easy to, even if the business model is not sustainable, i.e., someone will come in and accept a lower level of ROAS because they want to just gobble up market share in the false belief that will lead to, profitability down the line. If they can get there, sometimes it does, but often they can't. They go by the wayside. And in the interim, it's cost the more established retailers, namely yourself, that market share. It's driven up the CPCs. It's driven up your cost per acquisition. And it's had a sort of a short-term impact on your overall business performance.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that actually, because I think, well, I'm going to strongly disagree with you, and I think you did allude to it slightly, but the concept of it being easy for an online retailer to launch is true. Like you can do that, but for it to stay relevant and for
Oh,
it to become profitable is almost impossible.
100%.
I think it's
Yeah, exactly
impossible.
that. And that's what I meant about
Yeah,
they come in, they'll accept lower ROAS. Yeah. Entry into market, staying there, different kettle of fish
yeah.
entirely. But in terms of for a brand to take investment, to come into enter into the market, throw everything at it, except, to try and gain market share, accept a lower level of ROAS, frankly, just be break even at best. It's not sustainable, but they'll do it to end. And you were seeing that across, many sectors. And in the interim, it hits you because you're seeing diminishing returns, you're seeing your CPAs go up, etc., etc. So I just think we're seeing that. You can't control that. You're a master of your own destiny. You can't control these outside factors. So I think diversifying your portfolio with Google Ads, Google Ads, we live and breathe Google Ads. It's quite literally what we sell for, in terms of as an agency at Evergreen. But I think having an awareness of that, of what's happened, not just in your business, but the wider context, and then actually thinking, well, how can I diversify? How can I look at Bing, look at YouTube? What are these other platforms I can be doing alongside all of the non-paid channels? Is just makes good business sense, doesn't it?
I mean, yeah, we track Google advertising as a percentage of revenue. That's a key metric alongside ROAS that we monitor. And I think what you're saying there is we within Country Clothing we had several major physical retailers enter online in a more aggressive way because of the pandemic, which
Yeah,
drove up the bids on keywords and just
sure.
products in general. And then you also had a lot of retailers that were heavily overstocked because they'd overbought
Yeah, we
during the
saw that.
pandemic,
We
and
saw that.
and as a result of that, they were being more aggressive on advertising to clear through
Yeah.
lines. So we've like our average percentage spend on a monthly basis at the moment, the last 6-7 months floats around 9%, which is actually quite low. I think some of my competitors are spending between 10 and 15. But if we
Sure.
go back to the winter of 21, we were spending 4-5% on Google advertising.
Wow.
Now maybe we were underspending. That's the other thing to consider. So yeah, it's an interesting kind of story the last 18 to 24 months from a pay-per-click side of
It
things.
certainly is, and we've absolutely seen a lot of that. We, as I say, brands that were sitting on stock, others that entered the market because they bought up seemingly quote unquote old stock, and then
Yeah.
they were we're bringing it to market very cheaply. We saw a lot. Yeah, we've seen it. We've seen it all. We've seen it all. So I completely relate to that. So getting into these challenges, then. So the first one was spending more out of profitable ROAS, which we've kind of touched on. So just give us an idea of what you're seeing currently, because you sort of said overall, obviously you've got an agency running it, you're happy with what the performance you're seeing, but what's your sort of what are you seeing? What are you sensing? Are you hitting those diminishing returns yet? Are you do you have an inability to scale? What does it look like?
I think the key balance for me is managing those diminishing returns. And what I've noticed, we've switched agencies a few times over the last 2 or 3 years because I wasn't quite happy with strategy, etc. And like, so if I look at June, for example, we operated at a 9.75 ROAS in June. It's lower than where we have been historically. I think the previous year we were at like 10.5, which is from a ROAS side of things, and that's on a 23 grand spend in June. And I suppose we we sometimes get a little bit complacent with having to aim above 10 ROAS internally. That's something I've been obsessive about.
Right.
But I think if you find keywords from a search perspective whereby you are not ranking organically, there can be some big opportunities to spend a lower ROAS to take away market share from your competitors where they would be getting the traffic organically, say. So we're now looking at it from a bigger picture to say, well, let's spend a little bit more aggressively to kind of, I suppose, turn the knife on some of the competition a little bit.
Sure. Sure. Okay. Interesting. It's the question I've got is the ROAS that's the account level. You're obviously splitting off brand versus non-brand.
Yeah, so if I was to look into the campaign, we do have a search campaign that defensively
Yep.
advertises against Holland's Country Clothing. We have it on, well, back in the day it was like phrase match or what
Yeah.
have you.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
don't have it on broad, but really, the main reason for that is because what we find is some of our competitors will have search campaigns out there alongside PMAX or even PMAX campaigns with the search built in that they'll be trying to rank for or appear for country clothing, but then their ads are running away from themselves and trying to rank for our brand name. So
Yeah,
we,
yeah, yeah.
we do have a defensive strategy in place, but it's heavily restricted. Like I'm talking only £20 a day. So
Fine, fine, fine,
we
fine.
so let me just look at the conversion
And
value
then
on that.
in terms of your shopping your Performance Max campaigns, are you excluding brand? How are you dealing with the brand? Like, are you getting a true sense of your
Yeah.
performance when, with brand versus, non-brand?
Yeah, so all of our campaigns exclude our brand keywords, Holland's Country Clothing. So
Okay.
everything else then is set and primarily focused on the brand that we're trying to sell, whether that's DeBarry, Blundstone,
Is that how
Harkeela.
you structure your account by brands and stuff like that?
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
reason we do that is because the profitability for the brands is
Yeah, which
different.
makes sense. Commercially, that makes sense, as you say,
Yeah,
because you can adjust the metrics accordingly.
yeah.
Uh, no, that makes sense. That makes sense. So at the account level, you're doing that 9, 10 ROAS. And then with it, do you set branded specific or campaign specific target ROAS, or do you just look at the thing overall? Do you just look at performance overall?
So when I'm managing it, so I think it's important for your listeners to think about it from a retail perspective. As a retailer, I think it's really important that you have the ability to go into your Google Ads account and understand at a campaign level where you're performing on ROAS. So I will look in the Google Ads and I'll look for things that I go, well, that ROAS feels a little bit low. So if it's dropping below a certain ROAS for a particular brand, I'll raise it with
Yep.
the agency and say, listen, guys, I think we need to tailor off the spend on that a little bit. ROAS isn't where it needs to be. So I look at it in both scenarios, both at a campaign level and as an account as a whole.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. No, which is the right way to do it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in terms of, you don't have to give me the specifics, but in terms of how that varies brand to brand. So if you're at 10 at the account level, where would you say is the minimum that you can,
Yeah.
the minimum threshold versus an average?
That's a good question. I mean, so our branded campaign, the last 30 days, has been operating at ROAS of 29, which you'd expect very
Yeah, you
high.
would. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
But then, like on a brand level, if we've got a gross profit margin on a brand of, say, 29%, then I would expect the ROAS to be around 10 or slightly higher. If we've got a gross profit of maybe like 30, high 30s, then we can go as low as like 8 or 7. And then if it's
Right.
above 40, then we can go as aggressive as a 6 ROAS. And
And
that,
you're factoring that in. That's how you're deciding for this campaign, we need to hit X and this one, we need to hit Y.
yeah, exactly. Because if we go, right, well, it's acceptable across all of our brands to operate at ROAS of 8. Well,
Yeah.
that's not the case because some of our brands are volume based and we're only
Yeah.
making
Yeah.
25% gross profit margin. So
Yeah, except doesn't. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly.
So it's
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I think, I mean, that's absolutely the right way to be doing it. And I think if as you say, if you're, as long as the basics are in place, which if you've got an agency, you would hope that is fine. I'm sure with yours it is. It's then, but for me, in terms of improving that ROAS, there's a few things that just naturally, you'd be thinking about. One, you're absolutely starting with those commercials. Campaign commercials is key. That's so we understand what does success look like on a per campaign basis. Yes, great. That makes all sense in the world. Then beyond that, in terms of those sort of marginal gains of how you can improve the performance and dial that ROAS, it's really the basics, it's the fundamentals, and it's really just proactively doing that. So obviously you've got all the obvious stuff, your search terms and stuff like that, but areas where we're really focusing is in a couple of areas that I've mentioned on the pod a few times is the audiences. So, really going to town with audience segments and really building those out. Obviously with Performance Max, your asset groups, the amount of campaigns we look at where it's minimal assets that are loaded in. Google ads and Performance Max wants maximum assets. So load in as much as you can, really take the time to really, craft that. Similarly with those audience segments, go to town really, but make sure you're leveraging all of your customer list. I mean, they're not going into Meta right now. Please tell me that you're using them to retarget and feed those back into Performance Max campaigns. And then
we
how
are,
much
yeah, yeah,
you are good, right? Good tick. We'll tick that box.
yeah. We'll
It
take that.
beyond in terms of the how much time and energy, because this is something I know a lot of retailers just don't put enough focus on. Who's looking after and who's monitoring post the click? So once they've done the click, when they're on the website, how they're engaging, the post-click performance, whose remit is that sitting in, and is that to getting the time and attention it needs?
So that's really interesting. The first thing I'd just say, you mentioned assets there on a
Yeah,
campaign
yeah.
level. That is an area where we can definitely improve, and it's something that, well, I did sack an agency entirely for it because there were spelling mistakes in ad copy and things
Oh,
like that. So which
yeah,
is
yeah,
just
yeah,
very basic, and they've been copy and pasted, and then the assets would be irrelevant. But what I would say from a retailer's perspective is, I think the retailer needs to own that space. So we need to internally do a better job on providing great ad copy to our agencies. That's just something I would say. And then once the traffic hits the website, how do we monitor the analytical data there? Again, I think that's an area of opportunity for us. It's not something we're actively doing. I mean, to chuck it back at you, how do
yeah,
you
yeah.
suggest to your clients to monitor traffic once they land, and what do you kind of mean by that angle?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no, I think it's often it is one of the things that we're so busy focused on. We need more clicks, we need more sales, we need to just drive more volume in. But actually, a massive focus for us over the last year has just been: look, we can all see acquisition is getting more expensive. Therefore, let's put a little bit more time and effort and energy into thinking about retention, into thinking about those we've already got. I mean, it works particularly if you're getting decent volumes into the account. I mean, on an average month, like footfall to the website, what are we talking? Tens of thousands.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably a little bit more than that these days. I'll pull that data up and let you know.
Yeah, no, because
But
if you're getting statistically significant numbers, then all the obvious thing, you can heat map. You can be looking at files, looking, reverse engineering the data in GA4 or whatever tracking tool you're using to just see, are there any bottlenecks, are there any problem pages. Really just making the sure that once people do click, they are taking the action that you want, and actually there aren't any glaring issues. I mean, we've had some where certain landing pages just haven't been right, or certain product pages are running ads, and then you're going to product pages which are out of stock or are
yeah,
being 302'd, and it's just stuff like that. So just being mindful and think about the click, and then actually heat mapping, user testing, getting people to actually
yeah,
engage. Can they go through and buy the product? Is it really seamless? Are there areas for improve? Equally, a thing we did recently is we looked at that, and we were able to observe that how many people were going into the product. So they were searching, they were clicking, they were going to the website, but they weren't landing on the right product, and therefore they were going into the search. They were searching on the site, and that in turn gave us ideas for what they were actually looking for. So they were arriving at a product which, on the click to the ad, looked like it was right, but the data told us that it wasn't the right product, and therefore they had to. So it actually meant we had to reposition the products.
I think this particular topic, actually, I understand it a little bit better, and we do some of what you're talking about there. So, just to answer your question on online store sessions, according
Yeah.
to Shopify, that's 3.8 million trailing the last 12 months. So,
Right.
you
Okay.
can take what you want from that.
Yeah. So
Um,
you get, there's some
yeah,
decent numbers.
but
That's.
that'll include organic and paid,
Yeah, of
obviously.
course, no, of course, but that's what I
Um,
mean. But you're getting good numbers onto the website, because
yeah,
that's the other thing you can do is a good baseline metric to check is how your paid traffic is performing, engaging, versus say your organic and your direct, and see and you could just,
yeah.
because it's all that quality of the click and stuff like that. So, but I just there's a myriad. I mean, we could do a whole podcast episode just on what to look at post the click, but just being mindful of that, because I think often I see it where SEO agencies, PPC agencies, it's all about more. It's all like, we need more clicks, we need more budget, we need to spend more. But actually, how much time and energy is going into, well, let's just look if, are we getting the most out of what we've already got? And we have definitely done more work, probably than we've ever done, maybe in the last year, around how do we get more from what we've already got? So more retention, because we know, frankly, that acquisition is just becoming more and more expensive. So we want to acquire more new customers, but we also want to get, it's often easier to get 1% out of your existing customers than it can be to get a whole another 1% from new customers.
And I think on the topic of kind of conversion rates and making sure when you are pushing traffic to pages, there's two main things that we've done in the last 12, 18 months. The
Yeah.
first time is just in time. So now we have backup inventory on all of our products, whereby we have our physical stock in our warehouse, but then
Right.
if we sell out over the weekend, our system automatically switches over to our supplier's stock, which then is still available for the consumer to purchase. So people aren't then continuing to click an ad
Yeah,
for a hot
sure.
product, and they're visiting the site and, oh, we've got broken stock, it switches over automatically and they can order it on a slow fulfillment. And then the
Okay.
second thing, from a kind of a bigger keyword or a longer tail, a broader keyword kind of side of things with search, we built custom landing pages specific for keywords. That's another big thing that we've done in the last 12 months, and
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
that has probably been the most effective thing that has allowed us to spend more
Yeah.
efficiently.
Yeah. Which
So
makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's just the two final things I'd say on that.
Yeah, no. It makes a lot of sense. A couple of other things that come to mind. Just again thinking about specifically your sector, and thinking about how people search and how your ads are optimized, and even the way your product feed is feeding into the thing, is really remembering that seasonality and how people search, because we see huge differences depending on the time of the year, depending on what which season we're in, and so on, about how people are searching, and that can have massive impact. And I think again, classic sort of mistake, but a classic thing that people just forget about because you're so busy doing all this stuff, is actually, when was the last time we reviewed our product feed and we looked at how that was being fed in and what is showing in the SERP? So what is showing in those search result pages? How are our products being positioned? What imagery is being shown first? How are the product titles being positioned? All of those stuff, thinking about the use case of the product, thinking about the type of product or the condition of the product, or the kind of the why, the where, the how, the when for that specific product. Those kind of attributes, be it you apply them via custom labels and so on, that can be really powerful to just give you that, which is kind of along a similar to what you're doing with the landing pages, but that can give you just that little extra 10%. So we've seen that as well.
Yeah, and one other thing we've done, and that I think that's something that we can definitely do a little bit more of. But another big thing is we've automated the, because we have a lot of large collections on our website because we're a retailer. We have, I think it's over 6,000 different products and maybe 60,000 different SKUs.
Yep.
But what we've done is we've automated the organization of the collection pages based upon like sales in only a 14 or 30-day period, which means that as we head through the year and the seasons change and people's buying habits change and their search preferences change, the
Yep.
collections will automatically adapt to the most recent sales
There you
data
go. Yeah, that's
rather than
exactly it. That's beautiful.
rather than annualized sales data, which we're a winter based business predominantly. Like, we'll do £1.5 million turnover in December, but then June or July we might only do 350, 400 grand. So
Sure.
what we have to do is, as we head into these months, this piece of software, this app, I don't know off the top of my head, it will switch and put our summer orientated products, which have started selling, further up
Yep.
the collection pages, which means from an ads
Yeah.
perspective, the conversion rate should
Yeah, it's
improve.
just relevance. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, that's beautiful. I love that. That's
yeah.
exactly what you should be doing. I think I even know the app you're talking about that does that. But yeah, that is it. Just so much of this is about it makes sense to for the end user, right?
It's
It's
common
another
sense. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And another thing, just going back a little bit to the assets you mentioned, make another thing, if you're talking about there's areas for improvement within the assets, another thing, make sure you're doing is updating the imagery and the phrasing and the wording and all of that to again reflect what time of the year you're in. The
yeah,
amount of ads we see and the assets, you look at it and this is no longer applicable for summer. Or we've got clients where the summer period, being a lot of home and garden that we do, as you know, home garden
yeah,
lifestyle, and a lot of the home and garden, summer's key. And so the imagery, the positioning, the way we'll describe the product, the way we will optimize the product, the key attributes will feed in both visually and wording and so on, will reflect not just the product and the time of the year, but the use case of the product. So lots of lifestyle elements and triggers that when the user is thinking and shopping and searching online for a product, we're also thinking, why do they need that product? Where are they going to use that product? In what scenario and setting are they going to have a need or requirement for that product? Right, let's lean into that. And that can be really, really powerful as well. And so we make a point of optimizing our assets and really trying to reflect that in not even as far as in the search terms we're bidding on. And that will change. The product won't, but the use case of where and when and how am I going to use that product, that will be factored into the search terms. And one of the key tools which we use, which you can use, is to do that is Google Search Console. So
yeah.
using Search Console to inform, you can go back, 16 months, you can pull out that data on a page by page basis, look at the queries for that page and really start to see, okay, this is how people are finding this product organically. You feed that into your ads as well. Obviously, you can pull your ads data as well.
Yeah, we're not doing that enough. I think I've written that down because from an assets perspective,
Yeah.
We've not got enough for Google to have a play with an A/B test, which it will obviously do
Yeah,
dynamically
yeah.
now.
Max those, those long headlines,
Yeah,
short headlines. You max those out. Why wouldn't
yeah.
you?
And I think that's something I can immediately do with my copywriter. I can get her on the ads account and
Yeah, I
create
think so.
some more resources and assets. And then I've written down updating the image as well, because I know for a fact that there's certain assets in there that are very seasonal. Now, what I would say is you would hope that Google, if you had autumnal and summer and winter images, it would probably recognize that the click-through rate will drop off for the winter ads
It
and
will, but
stop
don't. But
serving them.
also
But
take control. Have different
yeah,
asset groups. Have one. Have you can have the same campaign running, so you've got that consistency and conversion data, but have different asset groups, so you can flip them out. Turn one on, turn one off.
I
Why
like
wouldn't you
that.
just do that?
I've written down take control.
Just take well, yeah. Look, Google's a black box. Performance
Yeah,
Max is a black box within a black box,
yeah,
right? Let's try and retain a bit more of control, and by maximizing those assets, but thinking as a business the different types of the key seasons, the key times, the key use cases, and then actually having different asset groups that you can switch and go between. It just means you're retaining what control that you have.
yeah. No, that's great.
Yeah, I like that. Before we go any further, are you enjoying today's episode? If so, you'll love our other show, Tea Talks. They're short, informal chats where the Evergreen experts and I share actionable nuggets on all things paid media, creative, and digital strategy that we use daily when growing our clients' businesses. And best of all, much like this podcast, it's completely free. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, see the link in the description. Now, let's get back to it. So what I want to do is I want to segue, because I think there's a few things there in terms of building out the ads, because it's working, but I think it's about making it work better. And I think
Yeah,
I don't really think, with a lot of the times, a lot of people say to me, is there, what else can we be doing? And beyond getting into the account and looking at very specific things, my best advice I can give is, look, think with common sense, think logically, put yourself in the shoes of your customer, think what they're searching, how they're searching, when they're searching, and then it just becomes the marginal gains. Is actually the area, as we said, the areas that look at those audiences, look at those asset groups, look at that feed, look at the landing page experience. Those 4 or 5 things. If you got a 1% gain on all of those, suddenly you got 4 or 5% plus improvement in your ads. Therein, you've improved the ROAS, and you haven't had to spend more. And if nothing else, you've alleviated the increase in competition without having to spend more to keep up with the Joneses.
yeah. It's just about efficiency, and
Yeah, it really is. And please go and start doing retargeting on Meta. My goodness me. You need to do that. Honestly, if you don't come and do it, I'm going to come and do it for you. That is just like printing money. You got to just do that. Just do retargeting. Again, great ads. We were only commenting before we came on air about, you've got some really good videos and stuff. Like, create some really slick little 10-second ads, create some motion graphics, have some nice clean offers, put them up, and only get them in front of your 100K email list and your retargeting audience. I'd be like printing money.
Yeah.
Absolute printing money. So make sure you do that.
I think it's an utter disgrace that we're not doing that at the moment. So
hey,
yeah.
You said it, right? You said it. But I think it's just but it's exciting, because you're looking at that and you're already doing some good revenues, and yet you're leaving money on the table. There's already areas where you can go, and you can go and implement this. You could get this, give it a couple of days, you could have this stuff done. This is beautiful, which is exactly the point of coming on, because I think, as you say, you come and talk to someone like myself, different perspective, able to maybe see things that you can't, because you're in the weeds, you're in the thick of everything, which is the whole point of the pod. So now I want to segue, if you don't mind, into these other questions, because you've got some, and this is not every, this is quite rare that gets to this, is you sort of almost want to get my take on some wider kind of industry stuff of like what's happening in the sector. So have you got them to hand? Do you want to kick us off? Because you've written a whole bunch, and just fire one of them at me and we'll just kind of get into it.
Yeah, and I think this is really interesting, because I've listened to the podcast a few times. I've not done all the episodes, but I've listened to a few, and I think what the advice and the guidance that you're giving people has been fantastic, because there's always huge opportunities like Meta for us. But I suppose I've worked with quite a few different paid agencies. I've been in the game for 10 years. I've been early Shopify. We're now in a different period, and it's changed a lot. It's changed a hell of a lot, and I think it's really difficult and challenging for retailers to keep up to date with things. So yeah, I mean, from my end, we talked a little bit before about these kind of disruptors who enter the market, don't survive. Do you think it's possible for to launch I'm not talking about direct to consumer, but if you've got a physical store and you go, right, I'm going to go online, do you think it's actually possible now to launch an online retailer or an online retail side of your business and become competitive? I'm not convinced it is.
So the question is, do I think it's possible to launch an online retailer and compete and make money,
And
basically?
make money, because I think, yeah, I think the barrier to entry is so high now.
The barrier to entry is really low in terms of actually getting online. I think the barrier to entry of making money is extremely high,
Yeah,
but the entry to enter the market is very low. I think I would agree it is very hard. I think I've spoken to a few brands. We've even had a couple of brands on the pod that are, startup businesses wanting to establish themselves.
yeah,
And it was something I've come back to a couple of times. I've said, look, if you want to compete online and you're relatively, you're sub 500,000 and you're wanting to just get those first, that little bit of traction online, I think the mistake that I see people make is they try and go too broad. They try and go, well, here's our entire product inventory. Here's all of the things we can do. I think if you're going to, it's very hard. It is going to be very hard. If you are going to stand any chance of competing, then I think you need to have real focus. And I think you need to choose, just a single product line or a couple of product lines where, and you need to do your research to find these, where you can see people search, you can see there is an opportunity to compete. It is going to come at a premium because really those first tentative steps you're going to make online you're going to have to use ads to get some initial traction. And I would see it as, if I run a small business and wanted to take it online, would I be put off to the point where I wouldn't do it? Absolutely not, because I think the opportunity is there. But what I would do is I would look at which is my greatest opportunity to do that. I wouldn't try and put everything on. I would say, where's my greatest opportunity? I would really focus on that, and I would have a two-pronged attack. So I would have a short-term kind of an immediate sort of paid strategy, which would be incredibly focused. I'd go after literally a single product group, and I would really focus on that. And then I would obviously go to town with all the things we've discussed, assets, audiences, because then the limited budget I would have, I know I could put it all in on a single thing and really try and prove the model, knowing there's search volume, knowing there's an opportunity. But then I would also be looking at the slightly wider sphere and building, looking at a content strategy to,
yeah.
long term, but taking the view that the content is not going to make a return for, probably a good couple of years. But I would be starting that. And I guess the answer is I think it is possible, but I think you've got to really, really focus.
That's really interesting, because I think some physical retailers who, and I'm talking about independents here, because
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah, of
my
course.
space,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
chains, because obviously big chains have got heavy resources and they can go for it if they want to. But
Yes, yeah, yeah.
although that might make them more cumbersome and have an inability to pivot, I suppose. But for me, I think what you're saying there about how you could have a retailer that has access to quite a wide catalogue, but from a
Yeah,
paid perspective, you launch the website, you have everything on it, but you
absolutely.
really focus in on a niche within your catalogue.
A niche within a niche. I
Yeah,
think that's the
yeah,
art. I think. Look, I mean, look, we're not a retailer, but even in agency land, we're exactly the same, right? We are niched in as much as there's marketing, then there's digital marketing within that. Then within digital marketing, you've got various silos: paid media, SEO, this that, and the other. We have increasingly become more and more niche. So we are a niche within a niche within a niche, and then from the paid media and creative that we provide to our clients, we've then gone, and we're only going to do that for home garden lifestyle brands. So we've gone a
yeah,
niche within a niche within a niche. And I think if you're trying to establish yourself online, because the barriers to entry is so low, but the competition is so high, you're going to get lost. There's a million stats out there that how many crazy, videos are uploaded every day, how many new websites come online every day, how many ads, are posted every day. The only way to compete is to be very, very focused. And a good way I think of it is go an inch wide and a mile deep. And I think if you want to compete online, the best advice I can give to anyone, and I've had prospects in this very room that I'm sat in right now, and I've sat down with them and I've said, look, I've got this great product, and it's, whether they're doing 50 grand or doing 500,000 or a million, and I just say, focus. Who is your target customer avatar, and what is your best product? What is the product sells? And
yeah,
prove the concept. The great thing is now, Amazon started just selling books, right? Now they sell everything, but they started just with books. And I think you got to just start with a single thing. But I think if you do that and you do it well, and crucially, the absolute key word with this, consistency. Because what people do, as you and I both know, is you start with this, you don't get, results after a few weeks or, 2 or 3, 4 months, and then you give it up, or you write that product off and then you move on to the next one and you go, oh, well, I'll try something else. And I'll try something else. Whatever you commit to, keep doing it for 2 years.
I think that's a really, really important point there, because I think what you've said agrees entirely with the fact that I think it's almost impossible. However, if you focus in a niche, it's maybe plausible. But most people, unfortunately, are quite average, and I don't think most people are capable of sticking at something and failing
Absolutely
for 2
that.
years until they
Yeah.
succeed. So,
Yeah.
for me, selfishly, it's quite reassuring to hear.
No, I think it's a great question, because I think there will be people watching this that are either doing that or that they're thinking about it or whatever. And I think it is possible, but you don't do it on a whim. You've got to commit. You've got to commit. You've got to be consistent, and it's all the seeds. You've got to commit. You've got to be consistent, and you've got to create content. You've got to be like we're doing. I mean, again, I come back to what we're doing, right? You've listened to the pod. You're now on the pod. Our pod is specifically focused on a given sector. So we're talking to a very specific type of brand, type of person. And we're talking about a very specific topic. And we are producing these podcasts alongside all the other stuff we're doing with no expectation. We know it won't deliver a return for probably 2 years. But that's the level of consistency. But the only reason we've thought about doing a pod for 2 or 3 years, we've never done it, because we've always come back to, but even though we're a focused agency, we were for a few years working with a lot of home and garden, but we were also doing a bit of B2B and a bit of this and a bit of that. And I said, well, who are we talking to? Because would we just have another digital marketing podcast, another paid media podcast? We would never cut through. The reason ours will in time cut through is in the sector, we're talking to a very specific audience. And I think that is true whether you're a retailer, service-based business, regardless of sector, go a niche. I think the wins are, we've all had to say there's riches in niches, right? There are riches within niches within niches.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think when I look at it, and the reason for the framing of this question is we've launched 2 sister websites, Holland's Workwear and Holland's Long Coats. Holland's Long Coats is a niche within a niche within a niche. That's just focusing on ladies' long waterproof coats. And that's generating 100, 150 grand's worth of revenue a year. But it's a 5-10 year plan. And I think we can dominate that the keywords within that little collection. And Holland's Workwear is a bigger project, but I would say that it's not a 2-year plan, it's a 5 to 10 year plan, because you've got to give these websites the ability to bed in organically as well, because
absolutely,
if you spend heavily on pay-per-click, you're not really owning your own home, you just rent him. So
that is a beautiful phrase. Yeah. Exactly that. And that's that. You've heard me talk about the backbone of digital marketing before. That as a concept is absolutely key to make sure that as you grow and as you build, you're not just relying on a single channel, but actually you've got your digital growth strategy. So what does your direct to consumer, what does your go-to-market online strategy look like? But within that, you silo it and you go, what's our paid strategy look like? What does our organic strategy look like? What does our nurture strategy look like? The email, the social, and what does our earning strategy? So our SEO, you have all of those things working together in tandem, then you build a robust business. And exactly as you said, you think in years, not in months, and you start with the end in mind. You go, well, in 5 years, this is where we want this business to be, and then you commit, and then you're consistent with the ad activity, with the content strategy, with your marketing strategy. And with that, it has a compounding effect. I think so many more people could be successful online if they just stuck at it, as long as they are very, very focused on a specific thing. You can be very specific and then broaden out as you grow. But all too often, people go the other way around. They go really broad, barely scratch the surface. It either doesn't work or it works to a very superficial level. It proves to be really hard, and then they're knackered and they're exhausted and they never punch through. And I think if you go an inch wide and a mile deep rather than the other way around, a lot more people will be a lot more successful in time.
Yeah, and I think just revisiting the organic side of things, I think that I could talk and we could do an entire podcast on organic strategy for our business, but we've actually now We're doing really well organically. There's tremendous growth opportunities for us now that we can list products that we don't actually have to buy. So we're
Yep, yep,
listing
yep.
on other people's inventory and capital, which gives us tremendous amount of opportunity to list more fishing rods out there and all the rest of it, and just chuck the fishing nets out and hope you catch a few. But
Yeah.
what we're at now is I think we're moving on to like level 2 for us organically, and I'm thinking and look at it like, right, well, for a particular keyword, we're ranking number 1, number 2, maybe number 3. Obviously, it's challenging, but possible to push yourself up to that second and first place or maintain the first position. But I look at it now to try and get a second website, a third website, whether it's buying or acquiring competitors or launching my own websites. I want to own position 1, 2, 3 through to 5 on Google for my niche keywords in the long term. And
Yep.
that's, for me, where I see long-term growth and success from a profitability standpoint in our business. If we can dominate niche keywords and not just have one organic ranking, but be the 1, 2, and 3 position, then
Yeah.
we're made. So
I would say that's the mature. That's as the business matures, as the
yes,
strategy matures. You know, it's own the SERP, right? That is the name of the game. If you can own the search results page, well, then you win you win all the races. So yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. But as you say, a lot of brands, you've got to get the brand to a certain point before, and then as you say, through acquisition, and then strategically, you can look at the movers and shakers to make that happen. But yeah, as an organic strategy, own the SERP is kind of the pinnacle. That's like the holy
yeah.
grail. If you can do that, not many achieve it, but as you say, if you're niched, it's a heck of a lot more feasible than if you're not.
If you look at, and I think it's important to look at the big entities out there. So JD Group obviously own Blacks, Millets, Go
Yep.
Outdoors. If you're trying to
There
buy
you go.
a Rab jacket in the UK, it's quite likely, or maybe an Osprey pack. The keywords surrounding those two brands, it's likely that you're going to end up clicking on one of those 3 websites, all of which are owned by JD Group. And then you look
Yeah,
at
exactly that.
this similar thing with Sports Direct and all the different websites they've got access to, and they're now looking at a situation where if you type in very broad keywords to do with, say, women's fashion or maybe, I
Yeah.
don't know, deck shoes or a particular category, well, 4 or 5 of their websites are appearing. So that's the dream, but we as
Yeah,
a
it's going to
business,
take some time. As you say,
yeah,
that's a long-term strategy, but
yeah,
that is a beautiful one to have.
yeah.
Absolutely. What any other questions? What was the next one you wanted to
Yeah,
ask? Go
yeah.
for it.
Sorry, we went
Go
into
on.
that one quite.
No. It's good. It's
But
good.
it was
It's
it
good.
was it was interesting to hear what you think. I mean, I suppose the other thing for me, like I've kissed a few frogs when it comes to agencies. You
Sure.
guys seem pretty switched on, and the guys that I'm with at the moment, I'm very happy with. But where do you think kind of advertising agencies, pay-per-click particular SEO agencies will be in 10 years' time? Obviously, Google is constantly trying to push AI on us. They're trying to make Performance Max very restricted
Yeah.
to from a customization standpoint. It gets to the point where it begs the question are retailers going to have the level of customization that requires an agency? Do you feel threatened by Google that maybe Google's trying to eradicate you?
No is the answer.
Good.
I don't feel threatened, but I do think that the agency model is going to continue to have to evolve, and we have evolved our business model in the last year, owing to we've probably done one of the biggest transitions and changes to our business model in the last year, owing to what's happening and how we're seeing things evolve. So,
Yeah.
to just give you a little bit of sort of background and context to that, we've always done SEO and PPC as an agency. So we've always done a lot of paid media. I've always done a lot of SEO. I saw I have seen for the last couple of years, particularly post COVID, a changing of the guard with regards to, from a brand perspective, how they're executing their SEO in particular. And basically, what they're doing is brands are increasingly, because of with AI and your chat GPTs and all of this stuff, there's a perception that some of the SEO tasks can be done in-house, some of them can be done more efficiently, more quickly, and so on. And so what I recognized is the agency model that I had, that a lot of SEO agency had of the past, which was you would come to us and we would define your strategy. We would then do the technical auditing and the optimization. We would then research and produce the content, and then we would do the outreach, the PR, the link building, and so on. What I recognized is that digital PR became the hot thing from promotion. It went from link building into digital PR, and now digital PR has a role to play, but it's increasingly emerging. It's PR really. Good, solid PR is worth its weight in gold. Unfortunately, digital PR's had the SEO. It's been SEO'd, shall we say, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Content brands are increasingly looking at how do we take this in house, because if you're not doing it in house, you're probably not doing enough of it anyway. And so I was looking at all these things and talking to a lot of brands, and we were seeing a change. So I actually evolved our agency model to focus more on the bits that were in demand, which are the strategy. Brands, unless you have a really good digital strategist that understands how all of the many moving parts work, how the algorithms are changing, what is working these days and what isn't, and that's across the different platforms, the different channels, the different ways in which all of these things come together and coexist. You need that. Brands need that strategic, that digital marketing, digital growth kind of business advice. I don't see that going anywhere. I also think technically, with the way the algorithms work, with the way these platforms are increasingly becoming data driven and stuff like that, the way attribution works, to move into a cookieless world, those technical considerations I think are going to always play a part, which again is going to be baffling to a lot of people on brand side, because it's just very technical and you need to understand it and lean into it and work with it. So I think that is going to play a crucial role. And then I think with the paid accounts, you're absolutely right. Google is automating, but as we've seen and are continuing to see, the system can do a lot, but it's often missing context. It's often missing the business goals. And look, anyone can run Google Ads. You can set your Google Ads up yourself, but actually, have you stopped to ask, are we doing ads for the right reasons? Does it align to our commercial objectives? Does it actually play the right role, or are we becoming overly reliant on it? Is it not performing? Are we doing the right types of campaigns? Asking those sort of questions, I think often can be done better by an outside perspective, because you have the benefit, particularly if you're an agency, you're working on multiple accounts. Again, if you're niche focused. So I think there's a few things there, but we have definitely niched and changed our business model to reflect the changes. And I think we're going to have to continue to change further still.
And a question straight off the back of that is
Sure.
Is the profitability of your retailers something that you consider? Do they share profitability at a brand level, or if they're a direct consumer brand, do they share with you, like, listen, this is our gross profitability, this is how much we can afford to spend?
I absolutely insist on it, Matt. I insist on it. It's because I think it's a must. We've had other guests on the pod. We've done tea talks. If you've seen any of those, we've done our tea talks on exactly this topic. Yeah. In fact, it might just link to that one we just done, because by the time this comes out, that will be a really, really relevant one for this.
Yeah.
There's a tea talk we've just done recently where we talk about exactly that. And I think where, not necessarily in the case of your agency, because it seems like they're really switched on and they're doing some good stuff, but a lot of agencies, where it goes wrong is agencies love to come in and, the answer to your prayers is what we do. So we're a Google Ads agency. Oh, you just need Google Ads, right? Or, a lot of marketers love to prescribe before they've truly diagnosed, right? And the way I describe that is, you don't want to put the cart before the horse. There's a lot of analogies there, but I never like to look, if you think about it, if you put the cart in front of the horse, what's going to happen? It's not going to work, right? So for me, when we get prospective clients phone in and they say, oh, well, let's talk, we want some Google Ads, so we want to do this, or we want to do that. And I say, well, hold on a minute, what are we trying to achieve here? What does success look like for your business? Where are we going? What does the 3 to 5 year business plan look like? What is your business performance now? And I absolutely insist, I won't take a prospect call beyond the first call unless I say, tell me where the business was, tell me where the business is today, and tell me where the business wants to go. And what I think is important for as marketers to do is we need the context. And that's in multi-level. So we need, as a brand, if you came to me and you said, hey, Aaron, we want to have a chat to you about working together. First thing I'd be saying is, right, what is the brand? What is the makeup of it? How much of it is online? How much is direct, is direct to consumer? How much is wholesale? How much is bricks and mortar? I want to understand that. Then once I've understood that, I then go, right, now we go a level deeper and we go, what's the reliance on the different pillars of digital marketing, which is our backbone of digital marketing concept? How reliant are we on traffic we buy, traffic we own, traffic we nurture, traffic we earn, so through SEO. I'd want to understand that. And often brands don't know that. And we have to get access to the data and we review it and go, did you know you have a 70% reliance on Google Ads? Oh, I didn't know that. And then we say, okay, well, we need to dilute this or whatever. Or, oh, we're not doing any email marketing. And we say, well, we don't do it, but you absolutely need to do it because you're leaving money on the table, or you need to do Meta or whatever it is. And only once we've gone through those two levels, so we understand what the business is doing overall, we understand the reliance per channel. Only once we've done those two things, then do I say, okay, now we can see in silo what Google Ads and Meta Ads and this and that are doing for you in isolation. Now we can overlay that to the business plan, see the role that it plays today and the role that it's going to need to play in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And then it becomes how do we get you from A to B? And I think the problem is, a lot of marketers love to do the other way around. The client comes in and says, "I want to grow my business. Therefore, I want to run some more Google Ads, or Google Ads is working. Therefore, I want to do more of it." The marketer doesn't stop to ask the bigger question, the bigger picture question. Goes straight into Google Ads without the real context of where you're actually headed, and that's why a lot of campaigns and a lot of brands end up fairly seemingly rudderless because they don't realize what they're trying. They're not clear, and their marketing agency is not clear on where they're going. Does that make sense?
That was fantastic, and I think I mean, obviously a star on the response there, basically, because from my end, it's kind of like my biggest frustration with agencies I've worked with in the past is they're not considerate of profitability, and the fact that we're a retailer that has a multi-leveled kind of profitability on different brands, different product groups within the brands, and a lot of these agencies that I've come into contact with, they're just not willing to dissect and go into profitability, or they're not asking the questions. It's all about making their client. Their version of making clients money will be revenue, not profitability.
Exactly.
And I think that's been a big gap in the industry
I completely agree with that.
And I think it's terrible. I think there's a lot of
it is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think a lot of agencies need to look at themselves and go, what are we here for? We're here to help support and grow a business, and growth isn't always revenue, it's profitability.
Yeah.
So it's huge.
It is understanding that I liken it to, I say, look, when was the last time you got into your car and went driving and didn't have a destination in mind?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? That for me, I'm a simple man. I like to simplify things, right?
Yeah.
For me, that's what it's about. Is if you're gonna have a destination in mind. So as a business, what does success look like? And that's not just turnover. That is profitability. That is reliance per channel. It is understanding the makeup, the DNA. I get people. I say, describe a business to me. How many people do you employ? What does it look like? How many offices have you got? Where are you? Where's your fulfillment? Like, describe the business to me, because then once we know what success looks like, we know where we're going. Then we can reverse engineer that and really start to unpick how the marketing, because it's the marketing that's going to get you from where you are today to where you want to be. And if any marketer is not asking those questions and not with you and understanding that and buying and also buying into that vision. It's why I like working with SMEs. I have had the chance many times over the year to either Evergreen or in other agency roles I've had, or been, headhunted to go and work. And you can work with these massive blue chip companies. I just don't want to. I like working with SMEs where I can talk to the business owner, where I can work with them and I can go, right, tell me what we're trying to achieve here. And if you're excited by it and I'm excited by it, well, then we know we're going to have a really good time getting there. But we have to be clear on where we're going. I don't want to run any kind of ads or any kind of campaign in isolation of just like, well, we're doing this without the context of, is it adding the value? Is it serving the purpose it needs? So it's all about context. And when you get that, and, for me, it's from the first conversation. It's literally that very first conversation. Right, let's tell me about what success looks like. Paint me a picture, and then from there, everything just fits. I always find it amazing that it all fits into place when you do that. Everything just makes more sense because you sort of know, okay, doesn't matter if we have a bad week or this doesn't quite work or we try that and we experiment here and it's not quite right, because we know where we're headed.
Yeah, I think the future as well, like, and this is another kind of like interlink question for me, is do you think retailers do enough or build their own knowledge enough to be able to actually effectively manage agencies? Because I look at some businesses that I know and I'm aware of, and and it's not I suppose a heavy criticism on them, but their internal knowledge of pay-per-click or SEO is not good enough for them to be able to manage a third party that they want to work with? Or do you think it's the responsibility of the agency to help educate the business owners internally within a retailer?
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's a bit of both. I think the agency does absolutely have a responsibility to handhold the client. That you're being paid to provide the service, but also provide the consultancy. And I think, I've always likened it the way I've mentored the team and trained the team, and the way I, internally, the way I sort of address that is I say, look, we're marketers. We're in the results, we're results driven. We're in a results driven business. If we don't get results for our clients, we're not going to keep our clients, because frankly, they're paying us to grow the business, make the money, etc. But I say also always remember that client retention is really 50% results, 50% relationship, and I think that relationship part is really key. It's why, again, it's so much of this ties back to my philosophy for business. It's why I've only ever wanted Evergreen to be a boutique agency. Now I want us to be a little bit bigger of a boutique, and we're getting there, but I've only ever aspired for it to be a boutique agency, not a big agency, because a boutique agency means we can really focus and nurture that relationship, which means we can do the hand-holding, which means we can pick up the phone, and if something doesn't make sense, we can explain. I'll give you a great example. We're going to have to wrap up in a minute, but I want to give you one example which just perfectly encapsulates this. So I've got a client, fantastic client, absolutely love working with these guys. Really nice business in the home and garden space. They've had an issue with their tag manager, Google Tag Manager. They've really struggled to get this thing sorted. It's not been working right, and this, that, and the other. And they, by their own admission, they don't really get it. It was set up by their original web dev agency years ago. We wanted to get access so we could sort out all of their stuff. They didn't know how to do it. So what I had to do to solve this, because the client was, I don't get it. I'm really confused. I want to help, but where do I start? What I had to do, but the relationship side of it, get them on the phone, and go through. And I had to explain in very simple terms what Google Tag Manager was. And I likened it. I said, think of it like a bucket, and all of your, all of the different tags go into a bucket, and then you've got, and it just, I simplified it down to visually demonstrate what I was trying to explain. And then in explaining it, he then said, I get it. He's like, you're the first person that's ever, I really understand what you mean now. I don't understand the complexity of it, the technical side of it, but I get what you're talking about and why you need access to this thing. And then from there, I said, look, it's going to be someone in your past that's going to set this up. It might be a developer, previous agency, et cetera, et cetera. So I wrote the email for him, and he could copy paste that email and send it. And I said, send this out to anyone and everyone that's been involved in your website over the last 10 years. And someone will come back to you and go, oh, that was me. Da, da, da. So I wrote him an email. He sent it off, and then he sent me, and then he sent it out. And quite as I'm recording, the reason it's top of mind, because quite literally last night, as we're recording this, he then sent me an email about 8:00 at night, was absolutely delighted, and just said, we've smashed it, we've sorted it. He was like, thanks so much for your help, really, and then he's like, cheers, here's to, I'm gonna have a large glass of wine. And I just think that perfectly encapsulates not just the doing of the work, the delivering of the results, but the retention and the relationship. And I think the job of the agency, the job of the marketer, is to hold your hand of the client and sort of, be there to guide them through what is often a very technical and quite confusing place for a lot of small business owners.
I couldn't agree more. I think you bang on the money there. Definitely.
There you go, mate. Love it. This has been good fun. Do you know what? I almost felt like we need to do a part 2 of this, because we've got so much to talk about. We haven't even got through your things. Matt, would you like to come back on maybe like this time next year, and we can we'll get back into it again?
I think that'd be great, and I think
should we do that?
There's a big topic that we've not talked about in depth, and that's SEO. And I think organic is a sleeping giant for a lot of retailers. So I'd love to come on and share my thoughts on that. And
I'd love to do that. I've been doing SEO for nearly 20 years, so I am a fellow SEO geek. So I'd love to do that. We'll get you back on, and we'll do that. But in the meantime, take what we've said today, please go and get yourself set up on Meta. Go and improve those assets. Go and build out those audiences. Go and look at after the click what they're doing, and go forth and just own this space. I'm going to be fascinated to watch you from afar, how you go and just dominate this sector. Absolutely brilliant. Love it.
Yeah, watch this space.
I love it, mate. Thanks so much for being on, Matt. I really appreciate it. We'll speak soon, yeah? Take care.
Yeah, cheers.
Well, there you go. That was Matt. What a fascinating conversation that was. I genuinely think we need to get him back on the pod for part 2.
I'll book it in.
There you go. I love it. That would be great. I think there's so much there. We didn't even get through half the questions, but I just think fascinating conversation. And again, it just goes to show that even really established brands, there's areas for improvement. There's things they're not doing. And I think whether you have, like Matt's got, agencies who's really happy with doing a great job, it doesn't hurt to get another perspective, even whether it's having a conversation, whether it's getting, I think the more people that can, if you, not too many, but if you can get different perspectives, bring different ideas, and different experiences in, and just maybe in this case, get him thinking about 1 or 2 things that maybe he's not doing or doing, but maybe could be done better. I think he's onto a winner there. That's a great business. And, very interesting. I love it. There you go. We have to leave this one here. I'm fascinated to see when we get him back on, how far he's taken that, and where if he does indeed own the space. I think he probably will. Cool. Right. We'll wrap this one up and we'll see you on the next one. All the best. Take care.